Hello and welcome. Every single day we spend hours and hours navigating this world that it doesn't physically exist. It's a space built of light and code. But have you ever really stopped to think about what all that time is doing to the one thing that makes it all work? Our brain? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into. I want you to think about this for a second. When you go online, where do you actually go? You don't physically travel anywhere, right? Your body stays put. The journey you're taking is purely psychological. And that's our starting point. We're going to explore how this world inside our minds is built and what it really means for how we think, how we feel, and how we behave every day. This quote right here is the key to everything. See, cyberspace isn't someplace you visit. It's a reality that your mind builds from the ground up. Every website, every social media feed, every single online interaction, it's all interpreted and given meaning by your brain. This is why psychology is absolutely essential if we want to understand our digital lives. And yup, there's a whole field that unpacks this, cyberpsychology. It's basically the science of how our minds and technology are constantly interacting, from the simplest little click to our most complex online relationships. So here's the kicker. This psychological space, it operates under a totally different set of rules. Things we take for granted offline, like our identity, the way time passes, even physical feelings, they're all flexible online. Our brains have had to adapt to this brand new reality, and that adaptation, well, it has some pretty profound consequences. And this brings us to our next big section, because in this new psychological world, there is one resource that is more valuable than anything else. Our attention. And believe me, there's a constant, invisible battle being fought for it. So our brains have two main ways of paying attention. First, there's endogenous attention. That's goal-driven. It's you consciously deciding, okay, I'm going to focus on reading this article. But then there's exogenous attention. That's stimulus-driven. It's when a sudden notification or a flashy ad pulls your focus away whether you want it to or not. And the online world, it's been engineered to trigger that second type over and over again. We all know these interruptions are annoying, right? But what's the actual measurable cost to our brains every time we get pulled away from what we're doing? 64 seconds. That's the number. Research shows that's the average time it takes to get back to what you were doing at the same speed after being interrupted by something as simple as an email notification. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but just think about how many times that happens in a single day. It adds up. So why does it take so long? Well, it's all about our working memory. There's this theory called memory for goal, and the basic idea is that when an interruption pops up, a new goal, like check that email, pushes the old one right out of your mind. To get back on track, your brain has to burn real mental energy to reactivate that faded memory of what you were doing before. And all that mental energy you're spending to get back on track, there's a massive financial incentive to make you spend it. Way back in 2015, companies in the US alone spent nearly $60 billion on internet advertising, all designed to create that exact cycle of interruption. This, right here, is the modern internet economy in a nutshell. Those billions of dollars are spent with one single goal: to create interruptions that hijack your focus. In this whole model, your attention isn't just valuable, it is the product being bought and sold. But this constant battle for our attention is really just one part of the story. The internet also fundamentally changes how we see ourselves, and maybe more importantly, how we figure out what's true. Psychologists have this idea called self-discrepancy theory. It says we all have an actual self, that's who we genuinely believe we are, and an ideal self, who we really aspire to be. And that gap between the two, it can cause a lot of stress. It's a gap that the internet is almost perfectly designed to help us close. Think about it. The internet gives us this incredible toolkit to build our ideal self. We meticulously curate our photos, showing only the best moments. We write profiles that reflect our ambitions, not just our day-to-day reality. We carefully choose what to share. We are all, in a way, crafting a public version of our ideal self. Okay, but this brings up a huge question. In an environment that's literally filled with these idealized versions of people and just an overwhelming tidal wave of information, how do our brains even begin to sort out what's real from what isn't? The answer is we take shortcuts. Faced with all that information, our brain falls back on what are called heuristics. These are basically mental rules of thumb that let us make super fast judgments without having to analyze every little detail. It saves a ton of mental energy. Here's a perfect example we've all done. When you search for something, do you really evaluate every link? Or do you do this? You type your question, you scan the top few results, and you just sort of instinctively trust that the one at the very top is the best, the most credible one. That's a heuristic in action. You're equating search engine rank with reliability. It's efficient for sure, but as we're about to see, it's also really, really exploitable.
Because, these mental shortcuts we take, they don't exist in a vacuum. Our desire to build that perfect ideal self, our reliance on these mental rules of thumb, our vulnerability to interruption, these are the very levers that are being pulled every day to influence our behavior.
So let me ask you, just how well do companies know you? I'm not just talking about your interests, but your psychological patterns, your habits, your deep-seated vulnerabilities. This quote from a former statistician at Target is, well, it's chilling. His job was to pinpoint these unique moments in our lives when our habits become flexible, like during a pregnancy. By analyzing shopping data, they could actually predict which shoppers were in their second trimester and start targeting them with coupons for baby stuff, hoping to lock in their loyalty for years. And this kind of manipulation goes way beyond just advertising. Scammers use the exact same psychological principles. Phishing emails exploit our shortcut to trust official-looking logos. Emergency scams prey on our love for family using details they find on social media. Inheritance scams trigger our sense of hope. They all work by hijacking our brain's natural shortcuts. Okay, so what's the takeaway from all this? Is the answer to just unplug, to walk away from it all? I don't think so, not at all. The real goal is to shift from being a passive participant to becoming a conscious user. Because look, understanding the cyber psychology that's working behind the screen isn't meant to make you paranoid. It's about empowerment. When you understand how your attention is being targeted, how your desire for an ideal self is being marketed to you, and how your own mental shortcuts can be exploited, that's when you gain control. Which leaves us with one final, really important question to ask yourself the next time you're online. Are you in control, consciously using this incredible tool to achieve your goals? Or are its invisible mechanics using your own mind to achieve theirs? The choice, once you see how the game is played, is yours.